Foundations of a boundary. This is going to be important for you. Okay. Because as we're starting to wrap up this year, listen, it's always kind of a BS excuse. Like, oh, we're going to be we all do this, right? We're going to be better this year. Cool. That's great. That's lovely. But boundaries can be made at any time, not just the beginning of the year. And I want to give you the foundations to a boundary because so much, and I have so much boundary stuff. It's a huge specialty of mine that I do with my clients because I'm kind of a boundary, I wouldn't call it an expert, but kind of. Like if there was such thing as a boundary expert, I'm probably that person because I'm really, really good about being able to tell you exactly what the foundations are. And again, I have other boundary podcasts, other boundary stuff, but I wanted to kind of give you the brief synopsis so you can start. You don't have to go jumping off of here and going like, I'm going to make a boundary because I want you to sit and think on it. Okay. So my first tip, right? Number one is stop trying to make a boundary out of emotion in that moment. Okay. So let me repeat that. Don't make a boundary in that moment out of emotion, right? So if somebody says something, does something, and you're like, that's it. I am never going to allow that again. I refuse, right? So no, that's all emotion. Boundaries do not get made out of emotion. And this is why you're not going to get off here and do all of that. Like you're not just going to sit there and do that now. So that's number one. And it's really important because so many people try so hard to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this out of my gut, out of what I need. This is where you got to pump your brakes. Okay. So that's number one. Take your time. If you feel emotional, do not get hasty because that's going to go into emotional intelligence. Don't get hasty. Okay. That's number one. Number two, know that the concept of boundary is if this, then this. A boundary is never just an idea or what you want. That's just a wish. That's a thought. That's a dream. It would be nice, right? Please don't talk to me that way. That's not a boundary. Mom, please stop calling me after 7:00. I'm not answering the phone. Not a boundary. Okay. So you got to get clear that it's if this, then this. Go back to number one, no emotion. I mean, I'm not asking you to be a Roomba, but I mean, you're not doing it out of anger and you're not doing it individually. You're not like, this is my boundary for mom. This is my boundary for the teacher. This is my boundary for my spouse. No, it's right now here. Stay with me, right? Because when you're doing things emotionally, that's where you start to create those boundaries that aren't real. Meaning, if you don't do this, I'm going to take your iPad for 3 months. No, you're not. You're not taking that iPad for 3 months. It might be 3 minutes, 3 hours. You're not taking it for 3 months. Okay. So you got to get realistic and it's got to have a consequence. Boundaries must carry a consequence. So again, the format is if this, then this. Okay. So it definitely needs to be known. So you could make, and you guys know that this is a very standard one that I give you guys a lot. So I'm going to give it to you as an example. Somebody's talking to you kind of sideways, like kind of out their mouth a little bit. Like you're just kind of like, this is just too much. By the way, I just told you it could be this person or this person. So I don't care if it's a boss. Don't say to me, well, what do I do if it's my boss? The same exact thing that you do if it's your friend or your mom. It's the same thing. That's why you got to stop with the emotions and this person and that person. A person cannot overstep your boundary. Know this. Cannot overstep your boundary without your permission. They can try. They overstep a boundary when you try to be repeating it, when you're repeating it, when you try to negotiate it. No. And that doesn't carry a consequence. That's typically the big problem. People don't carry a consequence. So here's an example. If you continue to talk to me, no, not even that, because I don't want you to go if you continue. I do not allow myself to be spoken to that way. And if it continues, I'm going to exit this conversation. Yes, even your boss. Yes, even him or them, whomever. Okay, if this, then this. All right. So you have to understand, you have to know what that is, right? So what I like to do, and my daughter's a teenager, is she's 16, almost 17, is I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to, let me take that back. I yelled a lot. It was when she was a child, a lot. It was kind of like my general go-to, but no, as it gets, don't do that. That was just me going through my stuff. But I just simply say, okay, listen, if the litter isn't done, or let's say it's whatever, if your homework isn't done, your litter isn't done, then then I'm going to do blank. But it's not ever out of aggression. It's not like, well, if you don't do this, I'm taking everything out of your room. I'm taking your door off. Like we're not doing that. This way it puts the choice back into her lap, right? So now actually what I do, because I'll sometimes forget because I'll be in a session. So I take her headset because she's a big gamer. I take her headset every day well, not every day, but like she's at school today. So like I'll take it home. We have a shared note on our phones, right? Shared note so we can see it. And on there, I put her chores for the day. Like if it's litter, clean your room, bring the trash down, whatever the case may be. Until that happens, she doesn't get the headset. So if this doesn't happen, you don't get this. If this happens, you get this. I'm not arguing. I'm not going to be repetitive. I put it on there. I didn't put a time there. So if she doesn't get her litter done, the litter done till 11 o'clock at night, I don't care. It doesn't have to be done on my time. You're not getting the headset. But if this, then this, right? So you have to understand you're letting your emotion take over and then your ego comes into play. Because a lot of times and I call it a boundary. It's more like, it is a boundary. It's more like a chore. But a boundary is you let your ego get in the way. Well, I asked them to do it. Yeah, they'll do it. Oh, they're not doing it on your time. That's okay. Check yourself. Right? So you have to remember that when you're doing a foundation of a boundary, it's always don't do it out of emotion. So you sit down, you go to the 5 journal series, stay right here on YouTube, go over to the 5 journal series and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And it gives you a time to sort of take a bird's eye view from like 10,000 feet in the air to say, okay, what am I, not what's mom doing to me, what's the boss doing to me? What am I allowing? Right? It's always this person. What am I allowing? And let me put it back on myself. All right. So when you do that, now you have a foundation. It's got to be realistic consequences. And you can do that when it's not out of emotion. Okay. So as you're setting a boundary, if this, then this. So again, that example of if, and not if, I don't allow myself, right? If you're if you're in a group of 3 people, 5 people at a party, and these people are starting to gossip about somebody, don't contribute to it. Just be like, hey, you know what? I don't allow myself to contribute to gossip when somebody's not around. So I'm just going to go to the bathroom. Or if it continues, you know what? Like if it continues, like I'm here. And if you guys feel the need to do that now, just let me know so I can bounce. Right. But so you got to set that. So that is the foundation of a boundary. Start to execute that. Let me know where you find you're going to have to get out of the headspace of like, but I feel guilty. Oh God, no, we'll address that in another podcast and another YouTube, but no. So start doing that. Let me know how you're doing with it. Let's go from there.